Looks like we are live and ready when you are, Mr. Mayor.
All right, sounds good. We'll go ahead and get started. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's the meeting of the Seldovia City Council, Monday, May 23rd, 6 p.m. And the actual time is 6:13. And we'll go ahead and do roll call. Sweat,
Here.
Rojas,
Here.
Swick.
Here.
Nathan.
Here.
Okay, we have 4 out of 6 present. We have Kennedy and Peyton both excused tonight. And Heidi or Rachel, if one of you will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as I said, item C, excused absences. As I said, Kennedy and Peyton are both excused tonight. Item D, agenda approval, and we'll look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda by Swick, second by Rojas. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on the agenda approval. All those in favor, Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, agenda is approved with 4 in the affirmative, 2 excused. Item D, consent agenda. Excuse me, item E, consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are approved with a single motion, no discussion, and 1 vote. A council member may request to remove an item for discussion and a separate vote. Items removed from the consent agenda will be placed under new business. Tonight's consent agenda consists of item 1, approval of minutes, none. Item 2, ordinance introduction. We have 1 ordinance for introduction tonight. That's ordinance 22-14, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Seldovia, Alaska, amending Seldovia Municipal Code, Chapter 5.08, Public Soliciting and Vending, and Title 18, Section 8.20.015, in parentheses, recommended for public hearing June 13th. And that is on page 7 of your packet. That is the ordinance for introduction tonight. Item 3 on the consent agenda consists of 2 resolutions. The first one, 3A, joint resolution number 22-01, joint resolution of the councils of the Seldovia Village Tribe and cities of Seldovia and Homer, respectfully supporting Homer Electric Association's pursuit of funding for the South Kachemak Bay distribution upgrade and broadband expansion project. This is found on page 12 of your packet. The second resolution tonight is Resolution 22-49, a resolution of the City Council of Seldovia, Alaska, adopting the City of Seldovia Land Use Management Plan, otherwise known as the LUMP. That's found on page 14 of your packet. And the final item on the consent agenda this evening is Action Memorandum 22-09, confirming the appointment of Randy Sweet to the Seldovia Planning Commission. That is found on page 203 of your packet. So that is tonight's consent agenda. And I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda tonight.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda by Sweat, second by Rojas. Any further discussion? Or does any member wish to remove any item for further discussion on tonight's consent agenda before we vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the consent agenda tonight. All those in favor, Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda is passed for this evening with 4 in the affirmative and 2 absent. Okay, that will take us down to item F, mayoral proclamations, none. Item G, public presentation prior notice. I don't believe we have anybody signed up tonight. Is that correct, Heidi?
Correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, item H, public presentation for items not on the agenda. Do we have anyone signed up or wishing to speak tonight on that?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll move on down to item I, committee and advisory board reports. And again, I don't see any on the list tonight, so I assume we have none. Item J, administrative reports. The first one tonight will be the finance report, and that's found on page 206 of your packet. And these are strictly tonight. These are just going to be in report form, no verbal to go along with them.
Correct, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions on the finance report this evening? Okay, obviously we're getting into the fiscal
Sorry.
year here.
I do, sorry.
Yep, you're good.
I believe it was in this and not in the budget. The harbor. Maybe that one was in the budget with the port fee. That one was in the budget, wasn't it?
Jen, is your mic by you? I can't.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
There we go.
Okay. The one that was in there though, it says the water is expected to be how far below, in the red, what was it, a few $1,000s or something?
You're saying, Councilmember Swick, the Water Special Revenue Fund?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's in the budget and
that wasn't in her report. Didn't she? Wish I could find
so let's
it.
see, I'm looking
What
at,
page is it on?
so her report is page 208 and I'm looking at water for expenses and we budgeted 224,663 for water expenses and actual to date as of May 17th was 201,217. So we have expended about 90% of the budget. And that doesn't include the final adjustments that will be in the FY23 budget for FY22.
On the
Okay.
roll up on 206, it says estimating to be in a deficit of approximately
Right.
3,000 for FY22 on the final numbers.
Okay, we kept, this seasonal maintenance position kept going longer because we found water funds. Is that what happened there?
Right, there was wages and salaries left over in water and sewer that hadn't been expended, so we were able to take that position from general fund and put it in water and sewer. And I'll have to ask Jan about that estimation. I didn't have a chance to check in with her on how she got to that total, but that's
Okay.
without the FY22 final amended budget, so I think we'll be
Oh, okay.
adjusted.
I was just gonna say, it's funny that we found money in a deficit, but okay. Was there another one I had a question about?
Yeah, and if the final budget amendments hadn't been factored in, then that should hopefully wash.
Okay, that was it for this one, I guess. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions on tonight's finance report? Okay, we'll keep moving here. We got a lot to do tonight. Item J2, Chief of Police Report, that's found on page 209. Pretty straightforward. Looks like things are starting to ramp up as they usually do this time of year. And I know the chief's on vacay and he should be back here any day. Any questions on the Chief of Police report tonight?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
I was just The complaints about illegal wood cutting, that's still going on? Is that currently still going on? I thought we kind of nipped that all in the bud. Like a long time ago. But is that reoccurring now, like this month, last month?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Rojas, I don't think so. I think that people have been coming in for a permit, and this action was actually inspired by something that was going on a few months ago with, you know, us wanting to update code because standing dead versus, you know, fallen over dead, they had different, it put the city in a position of how do you know if it's standing dead? So we added some clarifying language so that that could occur upon city manager approval through the code changes I think council recently adopted. So I don't think it's been happening within the past month or so.
It's just that his second paragraph about the complaints continues through this month. So I'm not sure what month he wrote this for. Maybe he meant for April. Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure that it's been handled. And I thought we had with our language change. That was all. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, and I see this one was for April, but I imagine there was probably still a few stragglers on that too that, you know, may have not been familiar with the actions to change. So, but hopefully, yeah, going forward here, that'll all we'll hear silence on all that. Okay, item J3, Harbor Master's Report. That's found on page 210. Same thing, looks like just getting busy summer, spring startup. Some new equipment that's going to be installed. Talking about some of the stuff for mortgage agreements to jackal off, some suggestion boxes, and then talking about trying to figure out how to start getting some of the derelict vessels out of there, removed. Got some stuff on non-harbor related stuff there with the kiosks, cemetery grant, finishing up on that, getting the rest of the equipment, training, and then of course ever ongoing maintenance. Okay, any questions on the harbor report? All right, item J4, Public Works and Maintenance Report, and that came in the laydown.
Yeah. I have a question about what I read in there that I'm kind of astounded by, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, you bet, Vivian, go ahead.
I'm not on the laydown right now, so I'll try to do it from memory. And that is that the big leak that we were trying to figure out where it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, was found on May 12th. And it was an individual on the slough area who actually had illegally turned their water on. And that's where the water was, our leakage was, that cost us over half a year's chlorine. Did somebody else read that? And did you read it the same way I interpreted it? If someone could explain that to me, please.
So through the mayor, Councilmember Rojas, I think you're picking up on the statement. The leak was discovered at a slough residence that was turned on unbeknownst to the city and was skipped by leak detection during multiple locating attempts. I'm looking to the city clerk to see if she remembers anything regarding that.
So when speaking with the finance officer and going back through the work orders, I would have to confirm with Public Works, but according to city records, that water, there was a request for a water locate, and I think there was an inspection done where the water may have been turned on and off, but the customer themselves has never requested a water shut off. We don't have that in our records, so we would have to confirm with Public Works. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that one reading the report, but we'll have to look into that further.
Okay, yeah, I would hope so, to find out if there was fault on one side or another, because that costs the city an awful lot, if that's what it was, and that's what our Public Works Director did say. That's concerned me a lot. So yes, please research that and find out what the deal is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, thank you. And I know I had spoke with Jordan a little bit about that too, and he gave me a little bit of background. You know, when they found it and everything seemed to line up with the dates when the increase, I mean, no one was around obviously when the big leak started, but obviously they found it, and as soon as they got it shut down, then the numbers went down and everything seemed to coincide when they did the backwards math and the dates and everything, that was the problem. So yeah, again, not sure the details of how or when it was, was or was not turned off, but yeah, it was leaking apparently between the shut off and the house. So coming out from underneath the house.
Hmm.
So the good thing is it's fixed and we didn't have to rip up another street somewhere to find it. So
Actually, yeah. Okay.
that's
thank
good. All right. Any additional questions, comments on the Public Works report tonight? Okay, we'll keep moving here. Item K, public hearings, ordinance 22-13A, a non-code ordinance of the city of Seldovia, Alaska, accepting the FY 2023 fee schedule, appendix A of the fiscal year 2023 budget. This was introduced May 17th. This will be found on page 213 of your packet, and I'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to turn it over to the city clerk to go over with council.
Yes, thank you. So as stated, this is page 213, and the changes were made as discussed at a previous council meeting and a work session. Some of those big changes are 7.4% increase to water and sewer and BHO rates, and a 5% increase to the harbor, along with the additional increase as recommended by the harbor master in a previously presented harbor rate study. Other changes to the fee schedule include language about first-time warnings for boat ramp and water and turn on and off violations, a port fee increase that will not go into effect until January 1, 2023, and will not be actualized in the budget until 2024, a line item for damage to a harbor pedestal and crane pedestal at cost, admin fees for harbor moorage, a combined page and rate for the boat launch ramps, barge landings for ease of management. So city facility use fees were moved to the page before RV and camping fees to consolidate. And garbage equipment rentals, most applications stay the same, except firewood and vending were both added to the fee schedule under applications, and a key replacement fee was included, along with, as stated at the last meeting where this was discussed, there are 3 caskets available for free. Police patches were included, and RV dump fees were removed. The language was also included under water and sewer utility rates that the city council will consider annual increases to the rates based on the Anchorage CPI.
Okay, thank you, Heidi, for that synopsis. And again, we've worked through this a couple times. So we'll go ahead and at this point turn it over to council for any further discussion, questions, comments.
Yeah, Mr.
Go ahead, Jen.
Okay. This is where I saw the port fee, wherever in this document. Why was it so low last year? Does anyone know that compared to 2020, they said 7,000 less people came into the harbor last year? I find that hard to believe. Is that a typo? I don't know what page that was on.
So I'm not sure what page you're referring to, but I do know that the port fee for last year was about 12,000.
Okay, so then it must be a typo.
Must be.
Yeah.
There was a dramatic increase from the prior year.
Right. Yeah, it was not on whatever this document I was looking at was. I think it's one of the. I don't even know. Is there a way that I can find where my notes show up so I can jump to them? Do you know that? So I don't have to scroll through 300 pages to find them.
Perhaps a comment bar on the side. I can come look.
Okay, I was just curious. I thought that was wrong. And I hope we weren't budgeting off of that number moving forward, because that's not going to be the case.
Absolutely. And through the mayor, council member Swick, the budget itself has a cover page for the harbor on page 301. And that goes over port fee count. And it shows FY 21, 2019, and 18. And the numbers that we had for passengers. And then I'm trying to look in the budget notes to see if maybe that's where.
Right. So she has 2020 as 11,000 and 2021 was 4,200.
Oh, okay. I see what you're asking about. So we don't actualize the port fee until the next budget year. So
Oh,
2021 would have been the port fee that the city received in 2020 for the
I see.
2020 season, because we start on a fiscal year July 1.
they don't pay till the.
And they pay in September for
Okay.
July, which is still 2020, but it's in our 2021
Got
budget.
it.
The 2021 budget.
So they're behind a year.
Yeah, so it doesn't show the 2021 on the budget sheet yet. But that was, I would have to double check, but that was a very a significantly larger number.
Okay, that makes sense.
Which is why they won't actualize the changes from the January 1, 2023 till fiscal year 2024.
Okay, Vivian, did you have a question?
No, Mr. Mayor, I didn't.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other additional questions or comments on the fee schedule? Okay, we'll go ahead and go to the public. If there's anyone from the public, either, I don't know if anyone's in the room or anyone online that wishes to comment on the fee schedule.
I'm not seeing any hands at this time, Mr. Mayor, but perhaps we could just have I'm trying to remember the right point of order. It's not a point of order, but I'm sorry, I'm blanking on them at the moment. Just so that hopefully Councilmember Swick can find her notes, if we could just take a short minute.
Okay, yep, we can take a quick timeout.
Maybe. I do know that in the public works, we have this existing fleet and inventory. What
Oh, so you're on the budget right now.
is that what we're doing?
We're on the fee schedule.
Oh, okay, I'll wait.
We're gonna give you a pass because we know you've been traveling all day. Yeah. Okay. All right, so Jen, I take it your questions will be regarding the budget rather than the fee
Yeah, the
schedule.
fee schedule looks excellent.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so Heidi, we had no one from the public, correct, on the fee schedule, and now we're gonna bring it back to council to look for a motion to approve ordinance 22-13 on the fee schedule for 2023.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 22-13A.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to adopt ordinance 22-13, the 2023 fee schedule. We have a second by Sweat. Any further discussion before we vote on the fee schedule tonight? Okay, we'll go ahead and go ahead and vote on the fee schedule. for ordinance 22-13. All those in favor, Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
I,
Swick,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0 with 2 absent. Go ahead and go to item K2, which is ordinance 22-13B, a non-code ordinance of the city of Seldovia, Alaska, appropriating funds, appendix B, of annual budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022 and June 30th, 2023. These were introduced at the May 17, 2022 meeting. This will be found on page 234 of your packet, and we'll go ahead and let staff present.
Thank you, Mayor. And I already know we have questions from Councilmember Swick, so I'll be ready for those. But I know that we went over the budget documents at a budget work session recently. And so to save time for council, happy to answer any questions. As the ordinance states, it's doing a final amendment for the FY22 budget and then giving council authority through appropriations for FY23, which is July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. And happy to answer any questions the council may have on this budget.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. We'll go ahead and open it up to council for questions or comments on the ordinance 22-13 on the approval of tonight's budget.
Oh, and Mayor, I'm so sorry. I meant to also share with the council that in the laydown packet is the manager's message that's going to go into the budget document. It's a little bit more concise and shorter than the FY22 manager's message, but I tried to pull information from that as well as all of the progress the city's been making and what are some big successes that we could celebrate, as well as what are some concerns or considerations that we should be thinking of for the future, and what's on the horizon over a very short time frame for the next year or two for the city. So, for example, the Kenai Peninsula Borough, their proposed budget, which hasn't been adopted yet, has a reduction in the borough mill rate, so that would help all property owners in Seldovia. You know, our sales tax revenues at the city of Seldovia are already much higher when compared to last year. So, for example, the first quarter taxable sales for Seldovia last year were 846,411 compared to 22 for that same first quarter. We're at 959,235. And it just, you know, it goes over things that we have to look forward to on the horizon for the next year, as well as the considerations and vulnerabilities, like how we continue to use community assistance programs to balance our budget when that's not a reliable revenue source. That we need to generate revenue to set aside for reserves and for essential maintenance of our facility and equipment, that our insurance rates keep increasing, that we still need to come up with a method for paying back the permanent fund. So just briefly touching on all of these points, which the council has heard over the year, I just tried to think of bird's eye view, hit on some of the highlights that we've accomplished over this past fiscal year in the manager's message.
Yeah, Rachel, I appreciate that. And I had I read through that, and that's a lot of information in a few short pages there, but basically a good brief synopsis for anyone that, you know, hasn't been involved in, you know, what's going on, or someone new to town. Basically just for anyone that wants to get caught up on where we're at and where we're headed. That's a pretty good document that's got it pretty much all laid out in there.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I would like to agree with that. And I really appreciated your overview, Rachel, that you put in the laydown. Because it does give our where we've come from, where we're going. And we just need to remember, we can pat ourselves on the back that we've, you know, attempted to do a good job trying to get a balanced budget, and we're aware of where we're lacking, and we just need to remember to keep that in our bird's eye when we're working through the next year. But I do appreciate the documentation that goes along with the budget. And so we've worked hard at it. The staff has worked super hard at this, and we're making headway, I'm pleased to say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian.
And Mayor, it looks like Councilmember Swick may still be looking for a question or two. Because I was going to say I have something else I could share if you.
go for it.
Okay, so I just wanted to state that, while we're on the topic of the budget and kind of to continue with the sentiment Councilmember Rojas just shared, I want to take the time to apologize to anyone that may have been impacted by conversations concerning the city's financial standing over the last few months, and how those conversations could have been facilitated in a way that could have left someone feeling like through my facilitation of meetings and information shared, that the city was cast in a more negative light. And so, as stated by the city's auditor on April 11th, there has been no fraud identified in the city's finances, and I agree. And words do matter. And so I just wanted to take the moment, especially with the window that Councilmember Rojas opened up, to sincerely apologize if I led anyone to believe there was fraud at the city of Seldovia, because we have taken many positive steps regarding the city's financial standing, and we need to continue to focus on moving forward to serve the community with the best service possible. We're all learning as we go, while wanting to see Seldovia continue to succeed for many years to come. So I've been reflecting on my leadership at the city and know there's areas I can improve on when helping the council and staff go through the complex challenges ahead, especially the ones concerning our city finances. So this is just like, I guess, a sidebar to the conversations regarding the budget. But if there's any insights you could share with me on how I could do this better, or any additional information I could provide, please let me know. So I did want to make sure this apology and sentiment was shared at tonight's meeting. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Rachel.
While Jen is looking for what she's looking for, maybe I could ask a question about, in the harbor, there's a $35,000 electrical fee. Is that for just the lights? And I'm trying to find it in the document, but it's $35,000. I think it says power, but I can't remember if it just says lights. Can somebody put their finger or tell me what page that would be? My question is, does that include, if that's just strictly the lights, or does that also include the actual wattage that's being used is in that number also? And then we bill back out and receive $12,500, I want to say, back from slip owners, if I'm understanding this right, because we worked really hard to try to get the costs of the harbor down. And lighting was one of our big pushes. So I'm wondering, is $35,000 what we're paying for just lighting the harbor? Or if somebody could tell me a little more depth, is that all that number is, or is it a mix of something? It seems like there should be a line item that says what the charges are that are the electrical charges from the pedestals, or whatever we want to call them, going to more, that should be a line item, and then there as a expenditure, and then there should be a line item of revenue, which I see that at $12,500. I'm a little bit confused by that, and I've been meaning to ask, and till right now, we had a little pause on, maybe someone could find what page that's on. We can look at it together.
Through the mayor, you bet, Councilmember Rojas. So if you go to page 302 in the budget, you'll see under utilities, power floats, and then you'll see Power Harbor Building and Jackaloff Bay Dock. So for power floats, we've budgeted $35,500. And I've checked in with harbor staff before. And so user fees just for electric can't make up the full cost of the power of the floats. So you're right, there's a line item just for power floats at $35,500, and then revenue for $12,500.
Okay, so the $35,000 is strictly for lighting the harbor, and then the $12,500 that we bring in, or that we charge mortgage owners for what they're using in the harbor. And those are two separate, but there's not a expense for that $12,500. We just see it as a revenue. Am I understanding that right?
So the $35,500 is an estimated budget for the lighting, as well as bringing power to the float so that vessel users can plug in to
Okay.
the harbor. And then the revenue is what we anticipate billing back out as part of that, the power floats, having that utility in the harbor to recoup costs for private vessel use. So power floats is lighting and people plugging in to use the float system.
Okay, 35. So it's not, it's a mix. It's not just what it takes us to light the harbor. It's less than that then, less than 35,000.
Correct.
And can we say it's 35,000 minus the 12,500? Is that what we're saying? Would that give us a number as to what it actually is costing us to light the harbor?
That would seem like the easy button. I mean, if you look at that, Vivian, I know where you're going with that. Yeah, that would seem, I'm sure there's some other stuff in there, but that seems fairly logical the way you're looking at that.
Okay, so we've done a good job reducing that cost in the harbor of lighting it. That number used to be way higher. Okay, I just saw that and I wanted to clarify. So in my head, especially when constituents ask, what are the fees in the harbor? What does it cost to keep the harbor going? I can now say whatever. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Rachel.
Okay, I think I'm ready, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Jennifer,
Well,
go
to kind of-
ahead.
Kind of go off of that, I'm kind of concerned about the dock, that it's running in such a deficit. And I found how to look at all my notes. I did have a note on Jan's thing. It was budgeted last year I'm on page 299. It was budgeted to have a $53,000 deficit last year. Or was this an amended thing too, once we found out the ferry wasn't coming as much, or?
So through the mayor, Councilmember Swick, that 53,673 is an anticipated deficit for this year.
Right, and it was budgeted this way to know that it was gonna be in the hole that much?
Yes, but not, I don't think, let me pull up the original document so we can look at that too. Because I know that there was a deficit budgeted, but I can't remember the extent.
Right, it just seems, because like we said before, the only money coming into it is from the ferry, which is not very reliable. I mean, obviously, we might end up in an even worse situation. Who knows what's gonna happen? Obviously, we're already seeing that. Is that, so this anticipated 33 is?
So for the original
that.
FY22 budget that we adopted, I believe back in May or June of last year, we anticipated a minus $35,000 deficit. So this year it's been amended for FY22 to now be a almost $54,000 deficit.
Right.
And then next year, the same thing, a negative $43,000 deficit. So it is being budgeted as having that happen.
And then, so a lot of the expense coming out, and I can't find, I know there's a thing in here that shows whose salaries are getting paid out of that besides the ferry, because that's getting reimbursed anyway. So there's other wages that are coming out. Obviously, it's part of Layla's. Yes, I'm assuming Layla is part of that.
So on page 299 at the very bottom in the little notes, that's like another way of trying to find those same percentage allocations. So we have the harbor master at 5%, the ferry ticketing agent and line handlers at 100%, public works, it depends on the position, 0.5% for, and this is for FY23, for Jordan's position, and 5% for the permanent part-time year-round public works staff member. And then for admin fees, you have the 5% finance officer, 5% admin assistant, and city manager at 2.5%.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like something's going to need to be done here differently in the future, because obviously we can't keep running like this, and it's going to need maintenance, and that money is going to need to come from somewhere.
Absolutely. So I'm
Yeah.
looking at the budget document. So if you, on page 298, if you look at the salaries and wages and employee benefits that happened back in 2020 and 2021, you know, they were high then too. You know, 2020, it looks like it was something like 37,000. 2021 looks like it was 34,000. So, and then 2022, we're saying 35,000. So it's still within a relative ballpark. The wages aren't what like skyrocketed in the special revenue fund.
Right.
It was actually the application of general liability insurance.
Right. And the audit fees, is that what this is?
Yes. Yep.
And that was all just allocation changes recently.
Yes. So we took the audit fees and liability and divided it equally amongst the 6 major funds, general fund, and then the five big special revenue
Mhm.
funds. So I think that's that jump that you're seeing. And then it's compounded by the decrease in ferry stops.
Right,
So we don't have that revenue coming in.
right.
Yeah, so
it's
go ahead.
concerning. You go ahead.
Yeah, no, when you look at, when you just look at the total expenses there at the top of 299 over the last 4 years. I mean, not huge. 2020, 54 grand, 21, 62 grand, 2022, 83, and then we're back down to 76 for 2023. Problem is then when you go down, I mean, you see the very first line on charges for services. Our 2022 and 2023 only had 13 and 14,000 respectively versus the 2 previous years at 50,000 and 72,000 on the revenue side. So yeah, I mean, we're in the hurt locker here without the stops that we would normally get.
Yeah, and then, well, I'm trying to think of the other users, the big, it must be in the contract, like the fuel barges and stuff, that's all probably built in. We don't collect on any of that.
That's a good comment, though. I could look into that to see.
Right, because that's only other major user besides the fishing boats who pay their crane fees, which is, I don't know.
Not a substantial source of
No,
revenue.
not really.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Yep, go ahead, George.
for the city manager, can we break out the electric bill for the dock? For the city dock? I see those lights are on all day and all night. Is there a reason that they're kept on all night?
So Public Works knows that the sensors aren't working on the lights, and so it's on their list to fix them. So that is a Public Works and maintenance priority. In terms of separating out the electric, this was something I discovered after talking to council about potential electric consolidation savings. The city office and the municipal dock are on the same meter. So that also makes it hard to know what's the pure electric usage of the dock versus the city office.
Well, when you're talking about $3,000 a month for a light bill for the harbor, then, and the city dock is not even part of that, apparently.
Correct. It's not a part of that.
Well, it certainly wouldn't hurt to get the light shut off at night. Seems like we should be able to isolate them if we can't get the sensors to work.
Yeah, and I'll offer just a general comment on, where George is going with that. I think that goes, there's a lot to be said for, security and things like that through lighting. But I know if you walk around Seldovia in the evening there, you'll see, and part of it is probably the maintenance with the sensors and everything for the nighttime daylight sensors and stuff. But we do need to make, I think, more of a focused effort on that. And there are a number of kind of obtrusive lights down in the harbor area and then around some of the facilities that we could probably save quite a bit of money, over a year's period, given the cost of energy right now. Just either making sure that those are either on a motion or some sort of sensor that's working, whether it be daylight or motion. I think that we almost need to make that an initiative, with the cost of energy right now.
Mhm.
And also, have those lights been changed to LEDs or are they still old fashioned?
I'm gonna look to the city clerk to help me with that one, because I know we've been changing out bulbs with HEA as they've died, but that's more in her wheelhouse.
The lights on the dock are city lights. They are not HEA lights, and Jordan had to replace them last fall, I want to say it is. So I'll have to double check on what they are, but I believe that has been our initiative for the last couple of years. That as we replace lights, we change them out for LED. So I would assume they are, but I'll double check and bring it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Heidi.
Mr. Mayor, if I may ask a question.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
So in the charges for service, where we're seeing the difference from 2020 till 2022 and 2023, is that from that 72,000, 50,000? Is that basically because of our lack of ferry usage? Is that where these numbers are so off now? I didn't quite catch it if it was said.
So another way of looking at that same information is if you go to page 297 of the budget, under performance measures, it shows you the Alaska Marine Highway Service stops. So yes, Councilmember Rojas, I would say it is associated with stop counts. You can see in 2018, we had 92, 2019, 115. Then 2020, it basically went in half to 68, and then only slightly up in 71. And I know that we've also had, I can't remember which audit or budget process it was, but we had a bunch of ferry revenue that was moved into a different fiscal year when it should have, had we been working with the ferry on a more timely basis, it would have been accounted more accurately in the financial statement. And I'm not sure what year that is, but that is something that we also had to fix as well.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I recall that. I think there was some billings that hadn't gone out for over a year or two or something crazy like that. Something happened.
Right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, George.
how? What is the mechanism for being paid by the ferry for use of the dock? Is it a long-term contract? Is it several years?
Yeah, so through the mayor, we have a contract, memorandum of agreement with the ferry. It expires next year. So we just worked with the ferry. They initially wanted to amend it to eliminate the ticketing agent position and change Seldovia's status from manned to unmanned, but council elected not to consider those amendments. And so the contract remained as is. And so it's in place. They have the specific dollar amounts assigned per stop, the wages per employees that we're allowed to charge them to cover, how much we get for revenue for trash and water. So those are all fees outlined and agreed to in that contract. So when we renegotiate next year, we can make amendments or propose increases based on the reduced ferry stops and what it's taking to operate the dock.
I would say we need to, however many stops they're going to make, we need to set fees that are going to at least cover our costs. I mean, we're not trying to get rich over this, but we don't want to be paying for their service.
You bet. Well, we do try. They basically do cover all personnel to a certain extent and then pay us for services when they're tied up. So those are just set rates, and we can look to see, like, have those rates changed, because I think the contract's it'll be 5 years old next year. So we could look to see with CPI and other adjustments if we need to make increases.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Rachel. All right. Any additional final questions before we go to the public?
Yeah. One last thing on the dock. The major maintenance and repair fund, maybe I should know this already. Is it set, like, is there money to access in that if we needed to fix something at the dock, or is it set aside for, I'm not seeing it like broken out into harbor, or is that a thing? I don't remember.
You bet. That's a great question. So if you go to, let's see where Jan's financial statement is.
I'm on 313 as the reserves on it, but I don't see anything specific as far as classes or accounts that major maintenance is, because is it broken out or is it just one lump? It's that 200,000 for repairs of anything?
Sorry, I just realized I was looking at the FY22 budget back when we were talking about what was the number of the dock. So I apologize because I may have said a wrong figure. I was looking at the wrong budget document. So I want to look at Jan's finance report to see if
Mhm.
this note is in there. So I don't see that note included, but it's a goal to break out what major maintenance and repairs is within AMLIP. So if you look at the finance report on page 208, it shows there's a balance of 238,751.56, and that'll actually go down because the remote seller sales tax was being placed in there when it should have been going to the general fund budget. So I think it'll be somewhere around 217 as a balance as of that May 17th report. But it's a goal to then further break that down. That's what that little asterisk is there for, to say the dock has this much, the harbor has this much, the water and sewer has this much. And that was adopted by council many months ago. It just hasn't made its way into
Okay.
AMLIP yet, but it's the goal to,
I knew it was broken down somehow. I wasn't sure how it was. Because obviously if something breaks, we don't have it in our budget to fix it. Yeah,
that's a great question. It's definitely on the list to do.
okay. And then just one other, now getting to the whatever list of our fleet. At what point are we scrapping this old gray Chevy? I don't know what this $15,000 to replace the whole thing. I mean, I know that's not in the budget, but it's in this document of,
Yes.
can we just get rid of that truck? When do we make that decision?
So Public Works has told me we cannot get rid of that truck until the city can provide Public Works with a truck as a flatbed that they can use, because right now the other flatbed is being used for refuse. And so we do have an appropriations request in through Senator Murkowski for a congressional appropriation to help us get a new to Seldovia refuse truck. It's also in our CIP. And we did advocate for it from the legislature, but I don't think we got funding for it this budget cycle. So that's why we're holding on to it, because they still need access to some truck. And if it comes down to it, we might have to be playing back and forth refuse and Public Works with the vehicles.
Mhm. And then the other Ford Expedition, where is that? Unable to assess at this time. Where has that car been at this whole time?
See, I know that the city clerk worked with Jordan on updating it. Does that sound familiar?
I'm sorry, could you ask that again?
Where is the other Expedition?
Yes, so there are the 2003 and then the 2004.
The 2002, it must be the one they're
Yeah,
cruising around now.
yeah. So there's the one that Public Works uses regularly, and then there's the other one that's sitting in the lot by the industrial building that says police on the side.
Mhm. Oh,
So
it's
we do have two.
okay, but it's not usable. Must not be if it's just sitting there.
It needs some maintenance from
Okay.
what I understand, and is being used to help upkeep the current
Yeah. Parts vehicle.
expedition. And it would need, it depending on right now, I think it can still be used for a backup police response if that was needed in the future. But certainly there could be more discussion about it. what
Right,
we're
because
doing
was
with it.
that the one that we were using, the department was using as their COVID car, or was that the one they're driving now?
I would have to double
I don't
check.
remember.
And I'm through the mayor, Councilmember Swick, I'm looking at that note. So the 2002 Ford Expedition is the company, it's a company vehicle, so it's used not just by Public Works, but whenever the appraiser comes into town or assessor for the borough.
Mhm.
So that's what we're currently using. And it's the 2003 Ford Expedition that's in fair condition. It says staff's unable to assess at this time what maintenance needs we could see for the next 2 years, but the staff comment for that piece of fleet is spare patrol car could dismantle and use as the company car. And that's on page 316 in your budget.
Okay.
Great
Okay.
questions.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead, George.
some time ago, I think I'm asked about contacting J-Bear about the salvage stuff that the military always has, and there's always lots of vehicles and any other thing you can imagine.
George, is your mic on? Sorry about that. We're having a hard time
Yeah, it
hearing.
says it's on. You hear me better?
There we go. It's got to be
All right.
pretty close to here. Yep.
All right, sorry about that. Maybe we could reach out to J-Bear just to ask if they do have any kind of a preferred relationship with municipal governments. I know they have auctions periodically, but maybe we could get on an inside track for stuff from J-Bear.
You bet. I will find out who I need to contact and I'll do just that.
Okay, any additional questions? We want to get on to public here as quick as we can. Okay, Heidi, is anyone from the public, any hands up or anyone wish to comment on ordinance 22-13 on the FY23 budget?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council for final action.
And Mayor, can I just make one more comment?
Yeah, you bet.
So also something that's in this budget that wasn't in the last one was the seasons of the city calendar. And that's found on page 243 of the budget document. And so this isn't an all-inclusive list. It's totally subject to change. It's a living document. But if you ever have constituents that are like, I'm so curious, what are some of the things that the city does? You could use this as a resource. And of course, we're updating it internally. So there's already been additions and changes. This was put in as of May 12th. And so we're just constantly adding things to this list. So if you ever have a constituent that's curious, these are some of the more administrative or operational tasks that reoccur throughout the whole year to give someone a sense of what the city does month to month or season to season.
Thank you, Rachel. All right, we'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve ordinance 22-13.
I'll make a motion to accept ordinance 22-13B.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion to approve ordinance 22-13 by Sweat, second by Rojas, and this is appropriating funds Appendix B for the annual budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022 and June 30th, 2023. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on ordinance 22-13. All those in favor, Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0 with 2 absent. Thank you for all the questions and comments on that. Item L, unfinished business, none. Item M, new business. M1, discussion on acceptance of the CDBG-CV grant improvements to the city of Seldovia's multipurpose building to prevent and respond to the coronavirus pandemic. This will be found on page 341 of your packet, and we'll go ahead and turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a very exciting topic. Congratulations, you made it through the budget. Now we're on to something super positive for Seldovia, which is receiving this grant to accomplish much needed maintenance of this building. I know that the fire hall is excited about a shower to help with decontamination. I'm really excited also for the fire hall because we're going to actually improve ventilation and get the ventilation system in there working. It was noted in an architecture walkthrough of the building that we did not have a functional ventilation system in there. So that's something that's going to be upgraded. Windows, you name it. it's an all-inclusive list as improvements that we could make to help the city respond to and prevent COVID-19 occurring in this building. But it was a very extensive process. The past administrator of the city actually also helped because she, along with the city clerk, did a survey to get our low to moderate income percentage index so that we could even qualify for this grant. So it's been not just this administration, but the past administration's efforts so that we could be in the position to receive the funds. So very exciting. Council agreed that if we got the 645 grand, we would use 10,000, a little over 10,000 from our first tranche of ARPA funding to make improvements to the chambers as well as the police chief office, because the grant can't cover general governmental functions or spaces where general governmental functions occur. So that's something that we're going to see too, is utilizing the remaining portion of the ARPA funds for that purpose to cover those expenses, which leads to the part of the discussion I wanted to bring before the council, which is, I know we've had talks about consolidating city operations. We've had conversations with the ferry that they wouldn't mind if we were here selling ferry tickets versus over at the city office. However, there is a restriction from HUD that says that the grant funds, if we accept them and we make improvements throughout this building, we can't have general governmental functions occur for 5 years after, I'm assuming, the closeout of the grant. So I just wanted to make sure that council had that information, because if you still want to move forward with the improvements to the building and accept those grant funds, it's going to be a minimum of 5 years before we could consider moving the city office into this building. So I just wanted to get council's feedback on that. And then next steps for this is council will accept the grant funds through legislation. We still have to sign a grant agreement. I'm in the middle of an environmental review for the project. So it's not, I'm trying to handle it as quickly as we can at the city office because it's construction season and it would be great to make this happen by the end of this year. But there's a lot of administrative steps. But that's the first piece that would be very helpful to get feedback from the council on is, are you still okay moving forward with this grant?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead.
I have a question. So, but we're okay to keep doing our council stuff in here?
Through the mayor, yes, because we're going to use ARPA funds to do improvements in here. So it'll be a different funding source. These are HUD funds, the Community Development Block Grant Funds. So they can't be used for this space, but the
Right.
ARPA funds can.
Oh, okay. Alrighty, just curious.
Good question.
But the 5-year deal does not apply for some reason. I mean, we're still working on the same building.
Right, so I should specify for the spaces that are improved with that HUD funding. So we're going to be using that funding in Seldovia space. So if city offices were to be moved to where Seldovia space offices are now, that couldn't be for a minimum of 5 years.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I'm in favor of moving forward with the grant, and in 5 years, we'll see where we're at, but let's move forward with what we have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian.
And Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, George.
of course, we'd be crazy not to take the grant after you work so hard to get it. I wonder if we can generate some revenue out of what we do improve to try to offset what we would save by consolidating our offices. Just as a thought.
Through the mayor, that's a great thought, Councilmember Nathan, and the Seldovia Space Coordinator actually works with staff on the fee schedule. So our current leases for Seldovia Space are, I believe they're all expired. So we're going to update the leases so that they're, in effect, they're still paying a payment. They just don't have an active contract. And in the fee schedule, we increased the monthly rental payments for businesses in that space. So that is something that the city has thought of.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. go ahead,
The,
Jennifer.
so our ARPA funds, are they acting as matching? I think I asked this before. Is this our grant match piece, or is there gonna need to be more money to contribute to this?
So through the mayor, there's no matching fund requirement, but we did list that as a match because we knew we wanted that improvement to occur. And the contractor could separate out his estimates for the space in the chief of police office space. So because we had that figure and we had the ARPA funds, and this is a allowable use because it's improvements related specifically to preventing COVID-19 by improved ventilation, that kind of reasoning, we were able to say, if we get this grant, we're willing to contribute the balance needed to make improvements to the whole building to respond and prevent COVID-19.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Yeah, I just had a quick comment, and I know Rachel, I talked to you a little bit about this. I know, before we go forward, I just want to make sure we get some time to go back, look at the entire scope, into the details of the pieces, parts, and I know that it'll have to go back to the contractor, look at the proposal and just make sure it's in line of, I want to make sure we're getting the most bang for the buck here on what's going to be proposed, and then make sure it's what we truly need. I don't want to go too overkill on the ventilation system. There's things that are more than adequate compared to what we have now, but we don't necessarily need the Cadillac of Cadillacs when we could use some of that money and go a lot farther in some of the other spaces doing other things. So that was my only concern. Just want to make sure that what we want and need are truly in line with what's being proposed.
Mr. May, if I may ask a question?
Yep, go ahead.
Clarifying, do these funds work for outside, the exterior of the building, the roof, the exterior, the structure of it, or no? Besides windows?
So through the mayor, Councilmember Rojas, I think what I'm going to do is I'll send out the list, the approved scope of work that the grant agreement is tied to, so
Okay.
that council could see all of the themes of improvements for the building. But we have plumbing, doors and windows. We do have roof replacement. So that was
Oh.
approved. Electrical, heating, ventilation surfaces like upgrading countertops, framing to install the wall and shower in the fire station bathroom, drywall finish, texture and paint, and then, the roof on there.
Okay. And upgrading the bathrooms, is that part of what you said? All bathroom upgrade?
Yeah, so for the bathrooms, we have plumbing, so putting in touchless features. Let's see what else. Getting the ventilation working in the bathroom. So for example, the bathroom right by the multi-purpose room, in the women's restroom, at least, that seems to be obsolete and needs to be replaced. So things like that.
Right, okay, thank you.
You bet.
Rachel, when do we have to have all the funds expended by?
That's a great question, and I don't have that off the top of my head, but I do remember that because this was related to COVID, they wanted a basically shovel-ready expedited project, and we were able to prove that because we already have our fire marshal certificate for construction done.
Okay.
So I want to say, if I had to take a guess, probably 2024 at the latest, but I'll confirm that date.
Okay. Yeah. And and everything we have on there shouldn't, now granted, there's massive material shortages still right now. And that's why we also want to get moving on a few things to see what and if we can actually maybe get done this season. Okay, any other questions, comments on the grant discussion? I just have one other comment. Yeah, this is, we've been talking, round and round in a lot of these meetings about grant opportunities and stuff. And I think this is where, making sure that we don't cut ourselves short on staff, on resources. I mean, if as long as we have the ability to reach out, put these grant proposals together, work with outside grant agencies, work with other outside grant writers. It takes bodies, it takes personnel, and to pull all this together. So for the few added bucks of having the just even the staff that we have, I'm not advocating for more, but just maintaining the staff that we have goes a long way. And I truly believe this will not be the last grant. In the next 5 years is ripe for a number of opportunities for our community to get additional funding. So, and I think it's going to happen as long as we stay driven, we stay focused, and we keep going after these. So I know there was, a question when, about whether we were even going to have time to pull this one together to be able to get it in and get it done. The administration did a great job of holding fast, got it done, submitted, and lo and behold, so here we are. So this is obviously a good thing, and I think a lot more to come. So I appreciate the efforts. I know it was kind of fast and furious on this one. So, but all right, any other comments before we go to public?
Just one more, if I could.
Yeah, you bet, George.
What would happen if, say, because of the increase in prices of material or availability of material, we could not perform? We couldn't spend the money in time, or we didn't have enough money to complete the project. What happens?
That's a great question, Councilmember Nathan, and I bet they'll have that in the grant agreement. So I haven't seen the grant agreement yet because we're still having to get the state all of the requirements first, but we'll look out for that in the grant agreement and make sure that's crystal clear so that we know what we're getting ourselves into.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would suspect that if we have to get into if it's a dollar amount and we can't afford everything on the original agreement because of this, unprecedented price increases and material shortage, that they would allow us to rescope the project and then value engineer down to, make it fit in the box and still have an appropriate contingency to move forward. So pretty much all construction projects are dealing with that sort of issue right now in these unprecedented times. All of the engineers' estimates, independent estimates, are coming up way short in regard to what the actual construction estimates and bids are coming in at. So there's a big gap there. So I suspect we'll have a pretty good exercise to go through. Now, this is definitely not complicated on as a large construction project, but I imagine we'll have a little bit of that to deal with on this, just knowing what I know about door and window prices, roofing prices, and commodity prices right now, and availability. So, all right, let's see. Heidi, does anyone from the public wish to weigh in on the discussion for the grant?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'll go ahead and bring it back to council. Are you looking for anything concrete other than the wishes to continue to move forward here, which I think I heard from everyone?
Yeah, that's great because council will formally accept the grant and approve the funds through separate legislation, Mayor. So just getting the thumbs up, please proceed. We can take that and then we'll formalize it later through separate legislation.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So I think we'll have a number of opportunities and rounds to vet this as we get going into the nitty gritty of it.
You bet.
Okay, appreciate that. All right, that'll conclude item M1. Last legislative thing on the docket tonight, item M2, resolution 22-50. Resolution of the City Council of City of Seldovia, Alaska, authorizing the sale or disposal of surplus equipment in a City of Seldovia 2022 public surplus sale. This will be found on page 345 of your packet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As said, page 345, this took a couple of months to go through, and it goes through various departments within the city. We reached out to Public Works, the Harbor Master's Office, police, fire and EMS. We kind of touched base with and hope to, again, a little bit more in the future. But from just the research and work we were able to do over the last couple of months, we were able to come up with 105 items to be sold as is, where is, in a competitive sealed bid auction that would close on January 15th, according to this resolution and the bid packet, which is provided in the packet following the resolution. Bids would be publicly opened on June 16th, and individuals would then have 5 days to provide payment and remove their items if they won them. The city of Seldovia also states in the bid packet and in the resolution that they reserve the right, when it's in the best interest, to reject any and all bids and to waive any informalities or irregularities. And that city administration suggests that the city should have an annual evaluation and or sale of surplus supplies, materials, and equipments and other personal property moving forward. Just from doing this auction, I can tell that there are going to be plenty of items to do another one in the next coming year. There were things that we couldn't get to, things that just weren't ready to go, but that are on the back burner, hopefully for next year.
Where is all this stuff? Just scattered randomly everywhere?
The majority of it is in the either the city yard, the maintenance shop, or the value added building yard. We did have some things at the harbor masters and police that are going to be moved over because there is a 2-day event planned. Let me just grab those dates real quick. So we're planning to have an open house to be held for prospective bidders on Wednesday, June 8th in the city storage yard from 12 to 3 p.m. And then on Thursday, June 9th at the city maintenance shop and value added building from 12 to 3. So things will be staged and people can walk through. There's a couple items like the windows and doors that are in the filter building that we're not going to move. And if somebody wants to call, they can call anytime during this auction period and request to set up an appointment or, ask information about the items on the list. But there will be 2 open days in the afternoon where we'll have it staffed and people could just walk through and see those items.
All right. Yeah, there is a bunch of stuff. Huh. All right. Any questions or comments from anyone on council?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
I think it's great. I'd like to compliment the staff about putting this together. And if we did it on an annual basis, I think it would clean up with things by a long shot. But great job. Hopefully people will hear about it and will participate. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian.
Just one quick question. Where is the money going? Into the general fund, I'm assuming? Yes. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, through the mayor for FY 20. I can't remember if it's I think it's in the FY 22 budget column, but I think we estimated $750. That's a low conservative amount because these sales take a lot of staff time to put together. And I've gotten feedback that, you might think you're going to be making a lot of money, but in reality, it's not thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yep, the labor cost money. All right, any other questions? And before we turn to the public? Okay, Heidi, anyone from the public wish to comment on the sale?
Not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, bring it back to council. I have a question. as we're going through this and we're starting to clean up some of this stuff, and I see some of this stuff scattered on, some of these other lots and stuff too. Looking at some of the other city lots, I know we've got, I'm assuming that there's like piling and stuff over next to the, the Sisbury lot between the value added building, and the Sisbury building. I see there's a bunch of pile over there. And I know they're slowly working towards getting the waterfront lots cleaned up there. And then some of our store across from the storage lots out the road. I don't know if that's Hopkins Crane or who that is, but there's a bunch of other stuff out there. There's some old engines. There's just a bunch of stuff. I mean, this is probably a good time as we start talking about the lump. We start looking at getting just our city storage yards and buildings and everything cleaned up to probably start, looking at all of these lots that we've identified, and just any inefficiencies, things that are laying around. I think it's a good time to start doing some housekeeping in general on everything, and just seeing what's what and what opportunities we have, for additional revenues off of any of this stuff that's not being used or it's just been sitting around forever. All right.
Absolutely. We definitely concur. And the hope is in the budget documents, including an inventory of our fleet and facilities and thinking about maintenance needs for them. And now we have the lump and looking at land uses for sure, Mayor. That's definitely a top priority, is how to be efficient, compact, simple, and just get the job done efficiently and use everything to the best of its use, so to speak.
Okay, sounds good. Any other closing comments from council before we move on? Okay, hearing none, yeah, that'll conclude the discussion on that. And then let's see, do we need, okay, so that's a resolution. What do we need on that? Are you guys looking for any kind of approval or anything to conduct that sale, or what do we need here on this tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if we could get a motion approving the resolution 2250, that would be,
Okay.
give us the go ahead to move forward.
Yep, sounds good. All right, we'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve resolution 22-50 tonight.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 22-50.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to approve resolution 22-50, which is authorizing the sale or disposal of surplus equipment in the city of Seldovia 2022 public surplus sale. Second by Nathan. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on resolution 22-50. All those in favor, Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0 with 2 in absentia. Okay, we'll move on to item N, the city manager's report. This will be provided in the packet on page 375. This may be the largest packet in history.
Oh, just you wait. So,
We can't
okay.
possibly have one bigger than this.
If we get you guys more grants, for sure.
Okay.
So for the manager's report, really quick, we talked about the block grant that we received. So it was a great effort with current city administration as well as the most recent administration too, and then council support for sure and making it happen. So thank you so much for supporting that initiative. The borough mill rate is proposed to decrease from 4.7 mils to 4.5. Their budget hearing was postponed until June 7th. So after that time, we should know if that decrease went into effect. The city has submitted requests for matching needs to Alaska Municipal League. So for example, Senator Murkowski's office stated that for all of the appropriation requests we've made to Congress for Seldovia, we should expect to match those funds at minimum 20%. So AML is collecting match needs from all the cities to see what they can advocate for to help out each community. We had a scare that thank goodness was nothing. the Airport Avenue water main situation where we thought that there was an exposed water main that was not buried to an adequate depth that we only discovered as a result of a property owner putting in a driveway to their lot. We, we're taking all the steps. That project, if we would have had to have done it, would have possibly been the reburying and temporary bypass installation of around 200 feet of main. And that would be about $240,000. But Public Works did some more ground truthing over the series of a week or two and discovered it was old pipe, drilled a hole in it to confirm. No water came out. So all of that worry, we were hustling because the state revolving loan fund had a submittal opportunity for May 31st, get us your water and sewer infrastructure needs project. So we were trying to pull everything together, only to discover none of that was needed. So better to have spent the staff time worrying about a ghost that didn't exist versus having the actual problem. But throughout this process, it was discovered that the city does not have a utility permit in place with the state to have our utilities on the road anyway. And that does have a fee associated with it. And it is an administrative process that we're going to have to go through at some point. So that was discovered during this situation. So a little bit ago, I shared with council that at the Infrastructure Grant Symposium in Anchorage, I got some really great news regarding our wastewater systems. So the state had worked with previous administration to submit a request for a wastewater treatment study analysis for Seldovia, and that was funded. And so the state is about to issue an RFP to get an engineering firm to look at what our wastewater treatment system options would be based on if all of the infiltration and inflow issues of the Seldovia slough were corrected. So that is going to go out, hoping to have that done by spring of next year. Simultaneously, the city is going to be working with the DEC to issue a survey to residents on the Seldovia slough that where their sewer main may have connection or inflow or infiltration issues. So not just their main, but also their connections, because we need to establish who is a year-rounder versus who is a seasonal person. The state has funding to proceed as long as our best practices score is at an adequate level to proceed with funding for all three phases of the Seldovia slough project, as well as getting us a wastewater treatment system. And so the goal is, with the study of the wastewater treatment options for Seldovia, we already have a study for the infiltration and inflow issues of the Seldovia slough. With those two things combined, we could go for design, permitting, and construction funding at the same time, maybe by spring of next year. That could be ambitious, but it's on the DEC's radar. And then we had a meeting with the Denali Commission to talk about what are ways that we can fund those seasonal homes on the slough. What funding sources could help us fill that gap. I think the DEC said it was an estimated back in, I think it was 2019, 26 grand a house for improving infiltration and inflow on the slough, somewhere around there. So if we need to determine how many seasonal property owners are there and how we can secure the funding, and if Denali Commission would be the right funding source, or should we work in the future with CRW or someone else to pursue grant funding to help us make up that difference, or bond for it, or do a special assessment. There's a variety of options. But I hope I didn't lose you on this wastewater train, because it's very exciting. There's a lot up ahead for Seldovia. The state is very interested in supporting us with upgrading our wastewater treatment options. So I'd say that we could try to apply for the funds by spring, or have all of our materials together to start applying, so that we would then get funds in the spring of next year. Ambitious, but it was that was good info to receive from the state. The finance officer provided information on the senior meals exceedance in the FY21 budget. It looks like it was just a matter of timing and when the revenues for helping fund the program are coded in the audit statement. So that way it looks like it could be exceeding, but that's just how I guess the money fell within the fiscal year. And then in Operator Cameron's report about the water leaks, I just kind of touched on the fact that, wow, we've really saved a lot of water. Also in partnership with ARWA, they have a local staff member, the city's former operator, John Kennedy Jr., who helped the city find a lot of those leaks. So thank goodness for ARWA. And then there's a whole bunch of one-liners. We have Sisbury deploying their dock in July. We have Fish and Game stocking the slough June 11th. We have the Borough Assembly President following up with the Borough Mayor regarding the borough's purchase of city property. The DOT sweeper will be in Seldovia in June for 2 weeks. We're looking for an update from Fire and EMS regarding the fire chief position being vacant, because per the safety officer, each year it's a minimum requirement with the state to have at least one training for firefighters. So hoping to have a fire chief in place for that. KPED has a broadband task force they put together. We're going to update the COVID-19 test kit distribution policy so that we can distribute 1 test instead of 2 to keep our supplies in stock. The net cleaning policy still don't have a firm update for the council on that, but we're working on it. And then Senator Murkowski's office let me know that they're hoping to have her appropriations she's chosen to forward on posted on her website by June or July of this year. So we should know what projects the senator supported, and then if we received funding, hopefully by the end of this year from Congress. ARWA finished the water quality report, the consumer confidence report. So that's going to be going out in water bills shortly. And then Operator Cameron has reached his certifications for level 1 for water treatment plant treatment and distribution. So he could be eligible to become level 2 for the water treatment plant by spring 2023 at the earliest, as long as he gets his continuing education credits. So that's very exciting. And then speaking of water, something that the council should take a peek at is, and it doesn't look like it made it in here, so I'll provide it in the next packet, but it was a look at water usage from 2006 to 2016. CRW put it together. And it was crazy. There was 1 month on average where it was like 192,000 gallons of treated water we were going through. So we've made significant steps to reduce the usage of treated drinking water in Seldovia to better reflect the needs of the community and also address the leaks so that we're not leaking out the treated drinking water. So I'll put that in the next manager's report, but it was pretty startling to see the figures and where we are today. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Any questions for the city manager regarding her report?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Bobby.
So I had some real concerns about the senior meal program. So what you're saying is then there was obviously we didn't go over budget then.
Through the mayor, that's how I take it. So Jan said it appears to be overspent because it's a reimbursement grant and the payment for Q4 of FY21 didn't come in until the fall of FY22. So Q4 is October through December. And so we didn't receive that payment until the next fiscal year. So she said that if you look at the actual final grant budget that we submitted to the state, we were actually just about on target, but it doesn't fall within the fiscal years cleanly. So then I would expect to see that revenue that should have been coded to FY21 and FY22, if that makes sense.
Okay, but in other words, we didn't go over budget. Like
We
it
did,
looked,
like per the auditors, we did, but that's, I guess, with the timing, but what Jan's saying, and I can double check with her, but it's, the money doesn't, the city doesn't get reimbursed soon enough to capture the expenses. So on paper, it looks like we've exceeded, And so maybe we just need to up our authority from council so that way it doesn't get flagged by the auditors as an exceedance, because it may just be that we have to spend more, but then we get reimbursed the next fiscal year.
Okay. Thanks.
You bet.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
That's good news. Actually, your report, Rachel, is good news all the way around. I'd like to see that. And I'm glad to see that there was not an issue with the senior meals program, but yeah, great news. It's a very positive sign, your report. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. George?
Yeah, for the city manager, we always seem to be getting into this fiscal years not lining up. Can't we? I mean, what, the funds are coming from the state and their fiscal year is a different period of time than ours. How does this always happen?
So through the mayor, council member Nathan, I'm not sure. The state's on the same fiscal year as the city. I know that COVID and staff turnovers, I mean, there's a variety of reasons why there could be delays in the city being reimbursed for its expenses. So I could ask the finance officer if there was a reason like that. I know that the state's reporting software called GEMS, there's been some hiccups and difficulties with that as well. So I don't know the exact reason, but the state is on the same fiscal year as the city.
It just seems that this is not the first time, and we've had the same problem where the budget looks like one thing because of delay in receiving payment, and we don't seem to be able to figure this out until after it's already been did. Just how it is, huh?
Can I just chime in there? Isn't there some way to make accrual accounting journal entries to fix that so it doesn't look that way?
I'll have to pass that question on to Jan, Councilmember Swick.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too. If you're operating on a accrual system, then you would think that we'd be able to account for that somewhere. So, but yeah, George, they'll if the manager can look into that, we'll probably get some answers to that. Okay, any other additional questions? Okay, Rachel, thank you for the report. Yeah, and again, that's exciting news about from the state on sewer, and the opportunities out there sound like there's going to be something real here over the next few years. So if we can set ourselves up in a position to get some of that funding, go through the steps here, and we could be looking at a fairly large infrastructure project to get, not only our SLU issues fixed, but then, maybe look at getting an actual wastewater treatment facility, and then, continue to look forward for the rest of the upgrades throughout town. So again, this is definitely the time to keep the pressure on and keep going. Hopefully we'll get at least a few phases of this. All right, thank you for that report. Item O, informational items not requiring action, none. Item P, executive session, none. Item Q, council and mayor comments concerning items not on the agenda. Sweat.
Just want to again say thanks to the staff for all their hard work.
Okay, Rojas.
Yes, thank you to the staff and everybody for all your good work that we're doing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Swick.
No comment.
Nathan.
Just something in passing. We do have a business here, a local business in town that deals in these heat pumps. And it might be nice to see a little more of the grant money get stuck here in town if we could find a system that would do for this building. I don't know very much about these things, and I just would like to see us look at that anyway and see if it actually makes any sense. And if it would reduce our heating costs for this building, that might be something worthwhile. The vendor showed me some electric bills for a building that he heats with this heat pump system, and they were below what my electric bills are. Never mind paying for fuel to go along with it. I was seriously impressed. Whether these systems can be used in a building this big, I don't know, but we ought to look at it.
Yeah, thank you, George.
And again, kudos for the great performance in the grant efforts there, and in what you're looking at in the future. Good deal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I'll just echo, yep, a lot of good stuff, good information, a lot, and congratulations everyone on the budget. I know some of the it's not every account is perfectly balanced, but overall we've got the entire budget was on budget. There's a small surplus when you put it all in the aggregate, and we'll just continue to make good strides on that. And then a lot of good information here coming up in the future, things to look forward to here. So appreciate all the hard work on that. There was a lot of information that went into all that stuff.
And really quick, Mayor, to add on to that, council's priority of the land use management plan, you guys just adopted it tonight under your consent agenda, and that was championed by the city clerk working with Councilmember Sweat and Rojas. So congrats to the council too. Your priority has been checked off the list.
Good. Yeah, lots of good progress here. So appreciate that. The next will be a regular meeting held on June 13th, 2022 at 6 p.m. And there may be something prior to that here. We'll see in light of the special meeting that was canceled earlier this evening due to us not having a quorum. So, but the next regular meeting is scheduled right now for June 13th at 6 p.m. And then we'll go ahead and look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
any objection? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn for the evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Okay, good night.
Jeremiah, could you give me a call if you get a chance this evening?
Sure, George, you bet.
Appreciate it.
Yep.